It is 1 minute after 7, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm Maya Hasagawa, and I'm going to chair the meeting. And first, you'll have to listen to me read the chair's remarks. Okay? You've probably heard these before.
Many times.
At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrator decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. Broadly, this means we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties, and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that as we are on the record, this is your opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, the court will not take or consider additional testimony at its hearing, but will look at the evidence from our hearing, the regulations, and determine if the evidence supports the findings and the decision of this board. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by the board. So I strongly encourage both of you to speak up at this hearing. As we are on the record, we are going to ask that you affirm your testimony will be truthful. So if you raise your right hand, and I hereby affirm that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury. Just said I do. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. That is 4 votes out of 7. We only have 6 people here, so you'll need 4 of us. If we do not have a full board present to hear your application, then we will consider a request to continue your application to the next public meeting. After taking testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on an application, it is the written decision that controls the timeline for appeal. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town does not have a special status before this board. Documents provided to the board by the town planning department, town attorney, or other town departments will be considered in exactly the same way as information from the applicant and all other interested parties. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes of, what was it, August 21st?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, Michael, are you voting yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So 6-0. Oh, I forgot. I should have appointed Ian Goodrow to hear the case. Okay. Was the meeting properly warned?
Yes, it was.
Are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications? No? Okay, so we will hear case 2019-119, and if you guys will go sit at the table. What we'll do is we'll have you talk about the project and what you want to do, and we'll ask you any questions we have. And then if we think we need to, we'll go into deliberative session. If not, we'll just vote. Okay, So can you
Sorry?
introduce yourselves for the camera?
My name is William Hodgman. I am the park manager for Tri-Park Cooperative Housing Corporation.
I'm Rick Fleming. I'm the general manager for Dead River Company here in Brattleboro.
Okay.
We are here on behalf of the applicant, Richard and Sandra Matson. They are looking to replace an above-ground oil tank at their residence at 11 Village Drive in Mountain Home Trailer Park. The area is subject to flood hazard regulations. They live within regulatory floodway. They're essentially without oil, and the oil companies, it's been flagged for replacement, so they are not able to receive an oil delivery again until a new tank is installed. Mr. Fleming can talk a little bit about that. It's essentially a tank for a tank. Because of the flood hazard area, there's going to be tie down requirements, anchoring to a concrete pad. But again, without a tank replacement, they won't be able to receive a heating oil delivery. We've looked at a few different options. This is the most affordable. They have applied through the state of Vermont for a grant to help with the cost of the replacement. Some other alternatives were considered, but were impracticable because they were cost prohibitive. So, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the
Sure.
actual tank.
Sure. 2 years ago, the state of Vermont instituted the above ground storage tank inspection program, where fuel dealers throughout the state are required to make inspections of all above ground storage tanks. And during that process, the property at 11 Village Drive, that tank, the existing tank, did not pass the state of Vermont requirements. We flagged that tank, as we're supposed to do under state regulation, and provided the applicant with a bid to replace that tank. Because it is in the floodway, Brian asked for us to look at a couple of different options. One would be to replace the tank. The existing tank, there is a concrete pad at the location, and basically what we would do would be to remove the old tank. We would then reinstall a new tank, and we would then be anchoring that tank per the state requirements to that concrete pad so that it would be stable in the event of a catastrophic flood, so the tank just didn't wash down in the flood. As part of that requirement, we're also required to make sure that the fill port on the tank is above the requirement in the floodway, which is I think 4 feet.
It's base flood elevation.
Base flood elevation, which we will be doing, as well as the vent pipe that's installed on the tank at the time of the installation. The other option that Brian asked us to consider was to put the tank underground. And basically I put together for Brian a bid and costs associated with putting the tank underground. That's approximately $10,000 versus replacing the tank above the ground with the tie-down straps at $2,600. So we're here, I guess, looking for a variance or approval.
Conditional use approval.
Conditional use approval to replace the existing tank with another above-ground storage tank for 11 Village Drive.
I had a question, which is, if you look at the diagram we were given of the property, where exactly is the tank, is the pad located? No, is it
Near the porch in the
near
front.
the porch
Yeah.
or around the other side, or?
It's on the, I guess the brook side of the home, the brook end of the home. Furthest away,
As-
furthest away from the opposite the driveway.
As close to the stream as
As
it can.
close to the stream as they can get,
Okay.
yes, yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yep.
I go to Leader Home Center a lot, okay? So last year, there was an ice jam there, and they were backhoeing, and it's like lickety-quick right across the, behind Leader where they were pulling the ice out. So what insurance, I really don't care about flood, I think it would be totally fine, but what about ice? Is it safe, or can you shield it from ice?
So the weight of an ice floe isn't really substantially different from water, except that it might pile up behind
It
it.
has the ability to puncture the tank, that's what I mean, that's where only question I have, and then I'm done.
It's a good question.
I know, that's the only
to-
thing I have.
To be quite honest, I don't know the answer to that. I suppose that you could put concrete barriers around the tank.
My,
Sometimes-
I guess the question I might ask, and I don't know the answer to that because I wasn't up there when that
Yeah.
happened, was this particular home impacted by the ice?
So that ice jam actually started right almost in the backyard of this particular home, and astonishingly, this home was not impacted.
okay,
I really couldn't explain it other than maybe years ago the site was plateaued
yeah,
because of the proximity to the brook. This was the at least third event that I'm aware of where there was flooding in or around the area, and somehow waters parted around
Yeah.
this particular site. I will say we, as a co-op, we do monitor ice jams. In fact, we were prepared to move on the one that happened this past January, but there were some other concerns involved with that, why we weren't in there. But to answer your question, I'm not sure either as far as puncturing a tank.
the only thing I think of is like something upstream, just that could thwart the ice ever from like diverting it around the barrel, the tanks, that's all.
Sometimes if you look at the FEMA requirements, sometimes they like you to put some piers that are anchored down in, not specifically as far as ice goes, but piers that are anchored down below where it might get eroded for higher erosion areas.
Yeah, I don't think that's an issue there.
Well, it is in the high velocity
Yeah. Okay,
area.
there you go.
That's my concern, I guess.
So I have a question. Can you talk about how the other mobile homes in that park are heated?
Uh,
Are they all oil?
You probably know better than
I would
I.
say most of them are oil or kerosene with outdoor storage tanks. We have seen I'd say a slight increase in some homes that have gone to propane for heating or natural gas, but they are predominantly oil or kerosene heated.
And that,
We do have some propane customers up at Tri-Park. Again, with propane, you'd have to put a tank in. You'd have to anchor it down. And in the case of a home that wasn't originally built with a propane operating heating system, you'd have to replace that system.
Which would probably bring you into a substantial improvement
Right.
issue.
Yeah, 50%
Yeah.
Can you talk about, have any of the other oil tanks or propane tanks been replaced? Is this gonna happen with other residents?
I imagine.
Soon?
I imagine it will probably happen with some other residents. A lot of the homes in those areas are aging, older, probably all original oil tanks. I've seen some newer propane tanks down in those areas, so some may have been replaced, 10 or 15 years ago. But I imagine we may see some more similar applications to this.
And I think there was one home that needed a replacement and they couldn't afford it, so they went to
Yes.
portable space heaters instead, which is probably the alternative here and is probably more immediate risky than.
I would
flood
agree.
hazard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had a question, Madam Chair. In our packet, we have a letter from John Broker Campbell, I guess, the Regional Floodplain Manager. This is at Department of Environmental Conservation. And it's just this part, I encourage the town to request the anchoring details from the fuel installer prior to installation and complete a visual inspection post-construction to ensure the tank is anchored as planned and no additional fill material is placed. I guess I would think that our requirements is we usually trust the insight of our zoning administrator to sort of follow up on things. But I would like to follow his recommendation, just sort of ask a little bit in the detail how a tank, an oil tank gets anchored down. What's the, like the,
Sure.
I don't know the materials involved, or if you could just maybe explain the details a little bit.
There is an existing pad that's there right now. And basically what we will be doing is we'll be drilling anchors into that pad.
Okay.
And then we'll be using strapping material
Okay.
to then go up and wrap over the tank
Okay.
from one side to the other in a couple of spots to hold it in place.
And I guess what would be sort of the best, the idea of ideally, I think, was it durability and reliability for strapping material? What have you found is best for these tanks in situations like this?
We've used metal and we've also used just a regular canvas strapping.
Okay.
We try to use metal.
Okay. Would I be under the impression that the state regulations requiring you as a fuel dealer to inspect tanks?
That's correct.
Would the strapping and sort of securability of the tank be monitored over
Whenever
its
we
lifetime?
The state of Vermont, with their new requirements, require every 3 years
Okay.
that every above ground storage tank
Okay.
be inspected.
Okay.
We provide that service to our customers. The first 3-year cycle is going to be ending next July.
Okay.
So all above ground storage tanks, whether they're outside or inside, have to be inspected. And part of that inspection process would be to look at the strapping to make sure that everything is secure.
Okay. That would just be, the concern is just as a fuel tank may age and become a danger.
Sure.
The strapping ideally, also could age.
Mhm.
And then I just wanted to just, in the application, on a couple things I just underlined them. This is the tank will reduce the risk of leaks and spills. The project will reduce the risk of pollution. And then there will be no increased impact over conditions. These are just things that I highlighted. Does that sound like accurate statement? I mean, it's in the application.
Yeah.
Okay. That was.
I didn't fill the application out.
Oh, okay.
But
I'm sorry, I didn't-
those comments make,
But they make sense.
absolutely.
Okay, great.
That actually helped filling out the application
Okay.
after reviewing the applicants.
Okay.
I've got a question. Is this flood zone that this in is in the high velocity flood zone?
Yes.
Marked as high velocity, yeah.
Yes.
It sounds, when I was reading in the application, that the strapping that you're proposing is there to try to keep the tank from buoying in a high
flotation.
water situation.
More flotation,
Flotation.
you mean, rather than the lateral movement?
Rather than a lateral. And I was wondering, you just mentioned that you were planning on putting in two
areas
connections
on the
with
tank.
just one strap over the top of it.
No, this would be the tank. We'd have one strap here and one strap there.
So
So
there's-
there'd be
Okay, so-
2 straps on the tank.
4 anchor points. to
So
the
there
ground.
would be 4 anchor points. It's just hard to, our picture that we got wasn't very explanatory.
I think it's a two-dimensional representation.
This is what we got.
It was tough to, yes, I agree. But yes, four anchor points.
It is actually a standard design, so it is intended to
So-
assist lateral movement.
But you feel that would hold the tank from a high, fast-moving high water in the area?
That's what the state requires, so I'm assuming that the state, they're the ones that set the standard, and that's the standard that we follow, so.
This is a situation where it's an existing non-conforming structure, and it's non-conforming because it's in a high-risk, high-velocity area, and it's also in an area with high erosion. It's not a substantial improvement, so it's something you folks can improve. It's not going to increase the high risk that's there now. It could be subject to total failure if the ground eroded under it, and of course that would take the home with it. So it does improve safety, but it doesn't eliminate the high risk.
So to get back to the question about the ice jam, is it possible to put in some kind of barrier? I guess this is not, this is more addressed at Tri-Park than to divert the water?
I was actually out there during the ice jam this winter, and there isn't, it was dredged and burned when they put in the homes, so
Okay,
there is
Okay.
actually protection
Alright.
from the way it was burned.
thanks.
Okay, that answers my question.
Yeah.
Does it answer yours?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, anybody have any other questions? Nothing? Do we want to vote, or do we want to go into deliberative session?
I can vote.
I wouldn't mind going into deliberative session just for a second. Just if nothing else, we may be seeing more of these, and it might.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you make a motion?
Could I would like to, I would make a motion that we go into deliberative session to be able to discuss this.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
In favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
We'll be back in 5
Yeah,
minutes.
you can-
5 minutes.
You want to stay here and we'll go outside?
Okay, it's 7:35 and I'm calling the meeting back to order. And I'm going to ask somebody to make the following motion. The Brattleboro Development Review Board, based on the findings of facts and conclusions of law, approves the application 2019-119 by Sandra Madison and Tri-Park Cooperative Housing Corporation to install a replacement oil tank with tie-downs in a regulatory floodway at 11 Village Drive, with the following conditions. That the straps used be steel. That a certificate of compliance is provided in section 428 of the Brattleboro Land Use Regulations be received from the zoning administrator. That you contact, in other words, he has to inspect it before it gets filled. That somebody contact the state permit specialist to determine if there are any state permits required. And I'm noting that we're waiving the local requirements that the tank either be elevated or buried.
So moved. Thank you.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you're good to go.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
These folks are without heat
Get her
right
down.
now, and it's getting cold.
Yes.
That's being right.
And if we wait 45 more days,
Oh, no, you won't wait 45 more days. We'll get the decision to you like, right away.
Toot sweet.
You'll have it in the morning.
I promised Brian that I would stay after, so we could write it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of the folks that live there,
Thank you.
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other business?
I move we adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, Rick.
I'll call you in the morning.